to hop on here because there is so much conversation going on right now about this TikTok ban. And I think that there's a lot of people I see talking about it that's really on the wrong side of this issue for many reasons. And I think it's an important conversation for entrepreneurs and business owners to have. And I'm seeing so many people post on Instagram, people crying in their videos, people shocked saying that this was abrupt. And I wanted to just talk a little bit about why this wasn't abrupt, how this isn't a violation of the freedom of speech, which I've seen some people saying, and why this isn't something that business owners should really be using as a cautionary tale of what can happen at any time in any market in any industry. Because the US has really been talking about this since 2018, 2019, when it was brought to our attention that the US had some concerns about the data that was being mined from TikTok, from ByteDance. And so I think that it's important to know that one of the things that we always want to be identifying with our businesses is making sure that we are doing a proper SWOT analysis, looking at the threats that our business can have if something changes in the marketplace. And this is a great example of that. It's also a great example of why you never want to have a marketing strategy or a customer acquisition strategy all on just one leg of the stool, developing something that is completely diverse, and also not building a business on leased land, right? TikTok, Meta, X, these are all leased assets that we are basically renting when we are putting content up and trying to drive traffic from. However, you don't own that asset. What you own when you collect your own data is when you collect email lists, when you build an email list so that you can contact those customers, when you have a proper sequence so when customers buy from you that you collect that information. And so I think it's a cautionary tale for entrepreneurs to take a look at where else in your business do you have these massive pots of risk and threats that you're not even aware of. Some of the concerns that Trump had originally back in 2019, 2020, which was shared with a lot of the military, for security concerns, espionage. Obviously, the data that they're getting is unlike anything else, with location, with biometric data, your face, your voice, every keystroke that you make on your phone. So, this is not just a social media app. There's also global implications to allowing TikTok to operate in the way that it was. And this definitely wasn't abrupt because our government, the US government, has obviously had numerous conversations about them changing the way that they access data. And those went unanswered. And it really wasn't until 2021 that Biden started getting in to really review the security concerns that were already established from Trump, and basically took 3 years to make a decision on it. And I really think that we are focused on the wrong thing in this matter. I think that the important thing that we need to be looking at is also understanding the way that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, the one party system, scrutinizes their citizens, how they limit and restrict all the information from their own people, but yet want to operate in a way that our citizens are just able to share all this information regardless of how it could hurt our security and our country. And so I think that it's a really important conversation to have. I think that it's also worth mentioning that the BBC, the New York Times, Meta, X, if you're watching me on X right now, they don't have the same ability to go onto every single citizen of China and share information. Not only in 2017 did the National Intelligence Law of 2017 get implemented in China in order to have broad sweeping ability to control and restrict information from the citizens, but they also said that all Chinese government, I'm sorry, that all Chinese companies have to share that data should the Chinese government ever ask. So it's massive security implications. I think that it's a way bigger conversation, and it really wasn't an abrupt decision. This is something that's been talked about. I started posting on TikTok in 2021. I did it for about 12 months, grew to about 250,000 followers, and a lot of people that I knew in the military and in the government space weren't using it at that time, and there were a lot of concerns. So I stopped. I listened to the threat. I was like, I'm not going to invest a bunch of time in continuing to build this audience when I really think something's going to come of it at some point. And here we are 2 years later from when I basically stopped about 18 months ago, stopped creating content on TikTok and really moved towards focusing on Instagram. That here we are, basically, Trump initiated, Biden looked into it. And now I think that the only way that we're going to get this back is the Chinese government striking up a deal with the US government to have some sort of ownership so that we can have some sort of control in making sure that they are not doing anything that is leaning on the law of espionage. And I think that's the only thing that's going to get it back. I also think that there's going to have to be some sort of share where the Chinese government allows Meta and X and some of our other even traditional media and news outlets to operate in China the same way that they want TikTok to operate in the US. Now, the TikTok version, I believe, I'm not even going to try to say the name, it starts with a D, Duplin, the Chinese version of TikTok isn't even allowed to operate in the same way. It is a lesser version of our app in TikTok, the way that we have in the US. And so I think that is it possible for it to come back? Yes, but I think that ByteDance is going to have to make some radical decisions. They're going to have to restructure it. And to this point, they haven't. So obviously, turning off the app for all of Americans is going to get everybody to talk about it. And obviously, if they want access to our users, they're going to have to strike up a deal. So I think it's a really critical conversation. And I see so many people, especially on Instagram, losing their mind, crying in videos, talking about how could they do this and so abruptly. But this is not abrupt. It has been talked about for years, and they finally pulled the trigger. And just imagine how bad it actually must be. I think that's an important conversation. Like, how bad would it be for an outgoing president to want this to happen 2 days before the inauguration? And what have they been ignoring all along the way that they made this decision because they know it wasn't going to be favorable or popular in any way for the millions of Americans that did not diversify their marketing or their customer acquisition strategies or their business strategies. So I think there's a lot of things that we don't even know, but obviously what we do know is massive. So I just wanted to come on and jump and talk about it a little bit. We're talking to the media a little bit later about it and just kind of some of the things that ByteDance is going to have to come to the table with. Because they haven't to this point. I guess they just thought the American government wasn't going to react and finally restrict it. But now that they have, maybe they'll come to the table with some better terms and stop collecting biometric and personal data and keystroke data and call logs and text logs and everything that they're doing on our citizens. And if you are concerned about that in any way, you should delete the app. Don't just not use the app, but delete the app from your phone because even when you're not using the app, it's still collecting data on you. And it is obviously Chinese companies are required when the government asks to share that information with the government. It's a completely different world over there. And I think sometimes we're so blessed here in America that we forget about it. So just wanted to jump on this Sunday. Hope you guys are having a blessed day. And we're going to drop more about this on the show over on the Candy Valentino show tomorrow, January 20th, where we'll be talking about the inauguration, a lot of the policies and positions that Trump has and what he's bringing into office, as well as the ongoing issue with this TikTok ban and how you can navigate it for you and your business. All right, guys, hope to see you over on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube on Mondays and Thursdays. Take care. God bless.